Hi guys, it's the Chit Chat on ELEGBETE TV with me, the ELEGBETE1 Sports. My name is Idafi Matthew Esiogene, and I have with me today a man that I'm actually not worthy to lace his shoelace. I'm not worthy to be in his class, his league, and on the same platform. That's just the truth. But because of people like him, I have a job, I have a dream, and I have a career. Not just that, I have a company. And I met him for the very first time in 2014 in Rio. We're doing the World Cup commentary, and this man showed up, and we were blown away. His modesty, his ease, his understanding was massive. He is, in my own opinion, the Zeus of sports commentary, football commentary. He is the king of them all. He's, oh God, I really don't know. I really don't have the right words to introduce him. You've heard all of the commentators in football, but this man has been there and he's done that. He's got a wardrobe for it. In 2006, if I'm not mistaken, it was awarded the Sports Personality of the Year. And since 2006, he's been the most prominent voice in the FIFA game that we all love to play. But beside that, he's seen every World Cup and he's seen football evolve from whatever it used to be to what it became and what it has become right now. I have the pleasure of introducing on my Chit Chat show on ELEGBETE TV, the amazing, the indefatigable, the ubiquitous Martin Tyler, the commentator's commentator. Martin Tyler, you're welcome to my Chit Chat.
It's a pleasure to be on, and I remember those days we spent in Brazil and in the television center, the International Broadcasting Center, and we exchange views and thoughts, and what we share is a love for the game, and that's obviously given me a long career. I'm much older than you, and you'll have a career just as long because you love the game just as much as I do.
Yes, I do. I actually live for football. I played it a little bit. I got injured, left it. I went into coaching, and then I came into broadcasting. And every single day seems like I'm discovering it for the very first time. It's like a box of chocolates, you know, you never know what you get, but every single day I wake up, it's like there's something new I need to do. There's something new I need to do. There's something new I need to understand. I never get tired of the game of football. And when I look at people like you, I always ask myself if Martin Tyler can be going on, if there is a force, something that is pushing him, because he's seen everything. You've seen football from Pele to Best to Johan Cruyff, Maradona, Roberto Baggio, Romario, Zidane, and Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, and you're still seeing more, then it means that we have no excuse. We'll keep pushing. So let's start with you. Where did your love for commentary started from? Because, I mean, back in the day, everybody wants to be a football player. So where did you start from?
I wanted to be a football player. I did have a semi-professional career till I was 27, and I wasn't getting any better. I wasn't earning any money of any consequence, and I got a lucky break. I had a chance through somebody I knew. It's often the way in the world, isn't it? Who you know rather than what do you know.
Yeah.
I had a chance to go into journalism on a football magazine, and through that I met a few people in television. I had a chance to work behind the scenes in television. But in that period, I was missing being at the games. You know, I was playing. I've been playing for many years, and I wanted to do something that took me back out to the ground, to where the excitement was, where the adrenaline rush was. And if I couldn't put my boots on, I had to find somewhere else to go in the ground. So I found a place on the gantry, and I discovered, really, I'm still quite surprised how it's all happened. I didn't set out to do it, but I discovered that one way of expressing my love for football, I was better at expressing it with words than I was with the ball. So that's what's happened, and the love is still there. You ask why perhaps you keep doing it, you keep going on. Yes, of course it's the love, but also you're trying to achieve something that's impossible to achieve, which is a perfect commentary. You just can't do it. I mean, we don't work off scripts, as you know. We just have to follow our eyes and our sense of the occasion and try and bring it home to the people at home what it's really like to be there. And it's a very privileged position.
Yeah, I always say that the position that we have to run commentaries for people that are listening is a unique position. We're like the eyes of the gods, you know. We see things that they don't see, or probably we see what they see, but we put it in words and they get excited. And so let's travel your journey through football. And I'm going to stop at a few pit stop, at a few garages to top the oil. So let's go to Mexico 86. Semifinals, England versus Argentina. You were coming,
Quarterfinal.
yeah, quarterfinals, sorry. You were, it
Quarterfinal.
was Belgium, Argentina semifinals. Okay, quarterfinals. You were on commentary duties. And Maradona scored the hand of God. Now, when I watched that clip, because that was the first time I was actually, 86 was when I started watching football because I was 9 in 1986. And when I see that clip, I always say to myself, is it not obvious for the linesman to see that? England had won the World Cup 20 years before, in 66. This is a squad that had John Barnes, Gary Lineker, Waddle. You know, it looks like another England team that could possibly win the World Cup. And you were on commentaries. I mean, this is your country, but you have a professional job to do. When that goal was given, how did it feel like for you?
Well, I didn't spot it absolutely at the moment. I knew something was wrong because the England players are disciplined players. They don't chase after referees without good reason. And particularly the goalkeeper, Peter Shilton, was very angry. He obviously seen from very close quarters what had happened. And I suppose a couple of things with memory. I did feel that the second goal, which I think was voted the goal of the century, was worth 2 goals, really. The first one wasn't worth a goal at all, but maybe the second one was worth 2. And I did feel that in the end, we saw the worst of Maradona and the best of Maradona. I think they were 4 minutes apart, the goals.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, I would have felt the same, you know, if an England player had punched it in, because it's not right. You know, I believe in the spirit of the game, the sportsmanship of the game. I know it's winning is very much the god of the game, particularly now, maybe a little bit less so than then. Whether England were going to win that World Cup, I'm not so sure. But had they beaten Argentina, they had a very good record against Belgium. You mentioned a semi-final. Argentina beat Belgium, Maradona again. And then it would have been a final against West Germany. And England-West Germany, it's always like a 50-50 game. Or England-Germany as it is now, but they were West Germany then. So they could have won it. But the truth is, I think over the game, we always remember the big incidents, but over the game, England were a bit, I think, inhibited is the word. It was being played not in South America, but in Central America. They were much closer to home, Argentina. The European teams didn't have a good record in World Cups, really until
outside Europe.
Yeah, outside Europe, yeah, across on the other continents. And so I thought England were timid, a bit tentative. And when it went to 2-1, they suddenly had a go. And had they scored, they had that chance near the end. Had they scored and it had gone to 2-2, I'm convinced England would have won if it had gone to extra time. But it happens, funnily enough, you're the second person in the last 2 days to ask me to reminisce about it. Someone over here is writing a book about it and speaking to all the commentators about it.
Wow.
It was, I suppose, an I was there moment, you know. Big stadium, pretty good commentary position. They're quite difficult sometimes in the bigger grounds. But yeah, a moment of football history, well, 2 moments, as I say, the best and the worst of a truly wonderful player.
Okay, so let's fast track to 1990, Italian 90. England once again. I think for my generation, that was one of England's best teams. The first time I was seeing an English team play with a real creative spark. There was an English player that could easily fit into a Brazilian team, Paul Gascoigne. So when that team was playing and progressing in the tournament, I was saying, like, I was believing, like, okay, you know, if you grow up in Africa, your first team is Brazil, and you're Brazilian. And then I was beginning to believe that team because of the way Gaza was playing. And then they got knocked out again. How was it for you?
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you that I go into these games as with the attitude that there are two teams on the pitch. And so it's only afterwards as an Englishman that I reflect on the disappointment. But while I'm commentating, funny enough, I was commentating for Australian television, and half of the Australians don't want England to win. So I had to be very impartial. But defending the England of that generation, they were, like in a lot of World Cups, they were developing through the tournament, and they had some luck, didn't they? I mean, they beat Belgium when Belgium were the better team. The group stuff wasn't particularly impressive.
No.
And then Cameroon was a game that they very nearly lost. And so they got there by not the most convincing route, really. But it was a 50-50 game. As I always said against Germany, it was a 50-50 game. And it came down to the lottery of penalties. And England had a really good penalty taker in Stuart Pearce, who took many penalties for his club. And on the big occasion, he didn't deliver, and Chris Waddle didn't deliver either. And that was that by the narrowest of margins. You know, it is quite a when it gets to knockout football, that's the real drama, isn't it? You know, it is death or glory, isn't it? Really, it's death or glory. And England had the death, and Germany had the glory.
Okay, so just after 1990, the whole of Europe football changed. The Germans started the program that they invested $500 million, yes, into their football that culminated in, you know, the success that followed subsequently and the league. The English, on the other hand, you know, revolutionized the league and went from the England Pro League to the Premier League in 1992. And since then, football has changed. Everything changed about the game. The big money came into the game. The big players came into the game. And you've been from game to game, season after season. So if you want to highlight the Premiership from 1992 up until this season, what are the highlights that you can pick out as a commentator and as a lover of the game?
Well, I think, first of all, it's the structure of the Premier League that's brought a lot of these highlights in, because I think I'm right in saying the first weekend of the Premier League in 1992, there were 12 foreign players took part, only 12. And now we're not quite as down to only 12 English players taking part, but you know the point I'm making.
Yes, I know.
That it's a very low percentage of English players compared to what it was before, which hasn't helped the England team. It has helped individuals because they're playing with great players at their clubs. So I think the pool of English players is smaller, but it's richer now. I do believe it's richer in terms of the experience that they're getting and the lessons that have been learned by the Football Association as well. But for highlights, I suppose, you know, if you go in broad terms through it, Manchester United grasped the commercial opportunities quicker than anybody else. And then they won 13 of the first 21 Premier Leagues and came close on other occasions as well. Clearly there was a little bit of a blip for them when Blackburn, who were well financed at the time, they came through and won the third Premier League title. And then Arsene Wenger arrived at Arsenal, and then Jose Mourinho a little bit later arrived at Chelsea, and Roman Abramovich arrived at Chelsea, which is the reason Jose Mourinho came, because the funds were there. And then, of course, we've had the Middle Eastern money come into Manchester City as well. We've had the Leicester City fairy tale. We've had the Arsenal Invincibles. We've had Sergio Aguero's amazing last kick winner. Which is one of those days, again, when you're lucky to be there holding a microphone. You know that feeling.
Yeah, I do.
So there have been plenty of highlights, some great players. And I do hope, without getting into too much detail about where we are now, because I don't know the answers to what these unfortunate people who are having to make decisions about our political lives, let alone our football lives. But if we do get the season going again, you know, that I think it would be a shame if we didn't. And I know from what we've heard today, everybody wants to do that, but of course, none of us know when that's going to be safe and possible to do so.
All right. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, a radio station in Brazil, a TV station in Brazil called me, and we're talking, and they asked me to give my top highlights of players that have been the turning point for some of the big clubs in England. And this was my list. For Manchester United, I said the turning point was the signing of Eric Cantona. For Arsenal, it's a combination of a lot anyway, but there is the signing of Dennis Bergkamp in 1995, and then the arrival of Arsene Wenger, Patrick Vieira, and Thierry Henry, and a little bit of Nicolas Anelka. And then for Blackburn Rovers, it was, you know, the money, the coach, Alan Shearer. I mean, I have to put him there. For Leicester City, I couldn't pick out a player, but even though Jamie Vardy was in the top form of his life, I think it was the coach and, you know, a little bit of the part becoming the whole. And Manchester City was Arab Money, Yaya Toure, Vincent Kompany, and Kun Aguero. And then Liverpool, I think Liverpool's greatest chance of winning the title before this time was when they had Suarez. But I don't know what happened, because I thought that any team that had Suarez in its team should be able to win a league title. That's my opinion. So going the same path with you, now I want to go into preparation, because a lot of people ask me this question: how do you prepare for analysis? How do you prepare for commentaries? How do you prepare when you go for the games? I said, well, first off, I go with an open mind. I have all the stats and all the informations that I can put in my small head, but I wish to God that give me a good day. I want to have a perfect commentary, but you know, we don't have it. We never have a perfect commentary. And some people try. Peter Drury, for me, is doing some perfect job. But how do you get to that place where you put out a commentary and everybody go like, wow, how did he see that? For instance, the goal that Aguero scored against Queen's Park Rangers. These are not scripted, okay? So how do you prepare? How do you prepare for games like that?
Well, you don't really. I mean, you prepare the same game, the same ritual, if you like, the same procedures for every game. And the most important game that you ever do is the next one, not the last one. The last one you can do nothing about. And you just have to steep yourself in football, really, so that you can sense what it means, because sometimes history is made in front of our eyes and we have to find the words to match it. That was a staggering moment, but I'd done 89, 90 minutes of work before that happened, and that's, you're remembered for sound bites, really.
Yeah.
I'm not over keen on that. I was going to say this, and you slightly veered away from talking about the players. You made very, very good observations about the clubs that you just went through. Very accurate. But it's a team game, you know. It's a team game for any successful team. And if a team doesn't do well, it's the team that's let them down. Occasionally, an individual player will be responsible for one defeat, but basically, if the team's not good enough, the results aren't good enough. And the individual awards, I'm not bothered about. I found out one or two things today because of some sad news about one of our great players of the past, Norman Hunter, that he won an individual award, which I'd forgotten about back in 1974 as the Players' Player of the Year, the first time that award was presented. But it's the teams that should get the rewards. And just like in television, it's the team. And let me tell you that the reason that is so gripping, that end, it's Sergio's moment, of course, most of all, Manchester City's moment. But the coverage of the match director, a guy called Tony Mills, who kept calm when all the City players were losing their heads, and he got wonderful shots. There's a shot of Joe Hart in total disbelief, running, he did not know where, because he could not believe what had happened. And that shot is all part of the story. And in our coverage, we had a split screen a few moments before Sergio scored, showing the Manchester United players.
Alex was raising his hand up like this. And that goal was scored and his hand came down. I can't forget that moment because I was watching it on TV and I was seeing the split screen and it was mad.
It was brilliantly done by the team, the cameramen, the sound men, because I was heard, which it could easily have not been heard in the deafening noise that was happened at that time. Mark Hughes was the manager of Queen's Park Rangers, a famous name in football, a former Manchester City manager actually, and of course a former Manchester United star as a player, played for Bayern Munich and Barcelona. And he said it was the noisiest moment in a football ground he'd ever heard. So for me to have said anything that was heard was down to our sound men. As I say, the cameraman, the match director, Niall Quinn was alongside me, who chipped in with some great words as well.
Thomas Sunderland's hero.
Yes, it was a big team effort at Sky Sports. And that's what it is. That's what I love about it. I love being part of a team. I always love being part of a team as a player. I coach as well, and we're a group, and we're in the National League, wondering whether we're going to start and finish our season, restart and finish our season. So the individuals are all there. They're very important, and they are the celebrity side of the game. But the guys who do it week in, week out, I work with a couple of them, here at Sky Sports. Jamie Carragher, 508 games for Liverpool in the Premier League, and Gary Neville, 400 plus for Manchester United. Proper team players, and they contribute that kind of quality to our broadcast as well. So how it happens, I can't tell you. I can't. People stop me in the street and ask me to shout Aguero, and I can't.
Yes, because
I can't do it.
Aguero.
But I can't do it like I did it on the day, because the game is so dramatic, so beautiful.
Make this movie.
But the great moments take you to a place that you can only go when those moments happen. It was a euphoric moment for Manchester City, obviously, and I think for football generally. I met Richard Scudamore, who's the chief executive and the whole power man behind the Premier League up until very recently, and he was in the process of sending out tenders for all his broadcast rights and everything. He had the biggest smile on his face you could imagine, because if you've seen that and you want to have it again next season, you're going to have to pay top dollar for it. And it was a special moment. It was almost the last kick of the 20th Premier League season. It summed up what the drama is in I think the most watchable league in the world. I've always felt English football is the most watchable. Of course, it didn't always have the top players, and some would argue it hasn't got all the top players now. Of course, we haven't got Messi, although everybody wants Messi to come and play in England. Maybe deep down there's a bit of Messi who wants to come and play in England as well. Of course, we had Cristiano Ronaldo when he was young, and Mbappe and people like that are coming through now. We'd love to see them in our league, and those leagues that have them will argue that they've got a better product. But for sheer first whistle to last whistle, the English game is, for me, it's the tops.
Okay, so let's bring this to this structure. Right? I mean, because we always see what's in front, but I learned quite a lot of lessons from going to Brazil in 2014, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scene that nobody sees. So the structure that supports the Premier League. How can a league like the league in my country learn from the structure, what Scudamore and his team behind the scene put in place for the media to be perfect, the game to be perfect? I mean, the English league is an example for everybody to follow. Back in the day, like in the 80s, the first time I came to England, they used to call the English game kick and follow. I remember very well, Liverpool was dominating, and Rodgers and Kenny Douglas and the rest of them. They were dominating. And I used to say the English league was kick and follow. The jerseys were very big, like parachutes. The pitches were not good. And boom, overnight, everything changed. The boot, everything is cut to size. Even the hair, the beards on their face, everything is cut to size. How did the English achieve this perfection that we in Africa or Nigeria can learn from?
Well, it didn't happen overnight, and it happened largely for necessity, because in the 80s, the game was dying, not because it was not watchable, but because it wasn't safe to go to the grounds. We had the hooliganism problem. The grounds were pretty antiquated. Football believed that it was so exciting that you'd turn up whatever, even if there was no facilities. You'd have to stand in the freezing cold, get wet, no covering. But because people wanted to go to football, the clubs weren't pressed into trying to modernize it. Then hooliganism happened, and the game was disappearing without trace. So some things had to be done. The grounds were made better. The all-seater stadia was a law of a football law and a law of the land, I think, as well. So that solves one problem. The Premier League did encourage the growth of the game through getting better players from other countries. There were all sorts of work permit issues that had to be ironed out. So it hasn't happened. What it is now is an evolution, really. It was never quite a revolution, except the start of the Premier League, because that was a brand new concept, and it had to maybe jump over a few hurdles, those who ran it, to get it up and running. But once they did, they realized the potential. The television from specialist sports channels had just started to develop then as well. And people said, oh, no one will watch it. No one will buy the sports channels because you have to pay. But the product was so good, and because it was, you got the games live, and the whole thing was geared to promoting the Premier League, that helped a lot. And those top quality pictures went all around the world. So people were attracted to it like that. But to answer your question directly, I think I'm not an expert on how African countries run their football, but I know there are lots of very good players. How much there is time and money to invest. I mean, you're a big country. You should be able to keep your best players and play in a league that's as strong as any league anywhere, because the resources of talent are definitely there. But the politics of it has to be all of one mind. You need probably some togetherness with the different factions. Football's full of vested interests. Every club wants its own needs served, but to get it right, you do need a collective effort from the Football Association, and you need to start attacking the problems of the better grounds, better playing surfaces, and of course trying to create a market where you can find the funds to keep the players, because at the moment, many countries are, not just in Africa, many countries are feeder leagues to the Premier League, really. I mean, France is just across the channel, and the players that have come here from France, it hasn't helped the French league. So whether it's realistic, I don't know. But I've all my career, really, we've been admiring the potential in African football. And we've seen some fantastic players come from African football, but they've come as individuals, really. And then they've gone back, and the World Cups have had their moments, but they haven't been as many moments as perhaps we predicted in the 80s, when we saw Nigeria and Cameroon, Ivory Coast, and we're saying, well, they can win the World Cup. But it's just the lack of perhaps total commitment to it. It's very difficult. I'm not putting down any country by saying that it hasn't quite happened yet, but it needs a collective will from all the word we use, and it's quite a modern word, is stakeholders. Everybody who's got a stake in it has to be on the same page and want to create it. And the Premier League's benefited from that, even though the clubs have their differences from time to time, and the league is owned by the clubs, in truth. So. It's not perfect here, but it's much better, and it is a good example to follow. But you have to do it your own way, with all the issues that don't apply over here. I mean, you know, the climate here. We can play winter football 12 months of the year. We had 25 degrees last week, early April, and now it's pouring with rain. I mean, we have all 4 seasons in one day sometimes. And so, you know, but they're never extreme. They're never extreme. So you have to work within your framework. but it starts from the love of the game, and your country loves the game as much as my country does.
Absolutely, yes, we do. Now, let's talk about the players, because you dwell a bit on the quality of the players, and Africa have produced some great players for the English Premier League, from John Fashanu, who although was raised in England, just the late Justin Fashanu, to our very own Efan Ikoku, Yakubu Ayegbeni, Daniel Debola Mokashi, who played 2 seasons, about 56 games for Everton, won the FA Cup, the famous self-substitution against Tottenham Hotspur. And we've also had Yaya Toure, Kolo Toure, Lauren Etememeya, Emmanuel Eboué, Gavinho, Yaya Toure, Didier Drogba, Solomon Kalou, you know, a host of African players that have come into the league. And I mean, there is one that everybody's talking about. What's it called? Playing for Manchester United, Jude Ojo Igalo, who was formerly with Watford and then came back and is playing there. And then there is this new kid on the block that everybody's talking about that is most likely going to come to the English Premier League or the La Liga. He plays for Lille right now. His name is Victor Osimhen, and he played against Chelsea in the Champions League, and everybody's talking about him. But my worry, this is my constellation sometimes, when João Felix was bought from Portugal to Atletico Madrid for over 100 million, the first thing that crossed my mind is, you know what? If that boy was a Nigerian player, they're not going to buy him at that price. Even if he's got the same potential, the same ability, the same talent, it's not going to cost that. What's the reason why European clubs cannot, you know, seem to put £100 million price tag on a player coming from Africa? What's the reason?
Well, I haven't got the figures in front of me, but I don't know what the biggest price has been paid. You might be able to tell me.
From Africa to Europe, from Nigeria to Europe, the biggest transfer fee is Victor Osimhen to Wolfsburg, 3.5 million euro. Other than that, we've had 2 million euro, Oturugu, 1.5 million euros to Turkey. The highest we've had from Nigeria. Now, I'm going to stay with Nigeria because I think we've seen 5.6 million from Egypt to, was it Birmingham or Wigan Athletic? And then a few other ones from South Africa, 4.2 million. But the highest from Nigeria is 3.5 million euros. And when I look at the potential, I'm not trying to overrate him here, but when I look at the potential of Victor Osimhen, I mean, he's an under-17 World Cup winner, but that doesn't count to the European clubs most of the time. Whatever it is that is measured, whatever measurement that is used, Victor Osimhen is a million times currently or at any time better than a João Felix, for instance. But nobody's going to negotiate 150 million for him. Why?
Well, it's a free market, isn't it?
It is.
And you can only pay what the other club wants to sell at. And obviously, if players are being sold at cheaper prices, then clubs will look at Africa and say, well, we don't need to pay that kind of money for him because we can get him for the cheaper prices. I mean, these players haven't been kidnapped away from their clubs. They've been, it's a deal, isn't it? And a deal is a deal, and really have to look at both ends of it to see. There's a bit of risk involved, of course. Players who haven't left Africa, a lot of players go to other countries first, don't they? Out of Africa, go to Belgium in particular. There's been a throughput there, and then they get tested out, and then the Belgian clubs get the benefit of the bigger money, really. So, it is a bit strange, but I do think it goes back to what we talked about before, that maybe the structure isn't strong enough for the clubs to be able to say, well, you know, actually, we'll take the 2 million euros and not hold out for 30 million euros because possibly we need the 2 million euros now. And there it is in our bank account, and they move on. So it's a deal is a deal. And as I say, nobody's stealing the players. It's what the price has been charged. So it is a bit of an anomaly. But of course, there's a great wish to come and make your name in Europe. But it is a shame because of what we touched on before, that really you should be making your name in Africa, because Africa is a wonderful continent.
Yes, it is.
Millions of people, and it's just not well, it's not just in football. Football actually mirrors society. It isn't the example to society. So I would ask you to look at your other industries and say, well, how do they compare with other comparable industries in other countries and other continents? So we can't, much as we would like to sort out some of the African situation, because it's a continent I love. I've been to a number of countries. I haven't been to Nigeria, I have to admit.
No.
I would love to come, but it's such a brilliant continent with so much in terms of depth and the quality of the people, the heart and soul of the continent are the people. And I've only had brilliant experiences with my dealings with African footballers, with my visits to Africa, and the fact that we've had a World Cup in Africa, which is something that I think is something that the continent should be very, very proud of, and it was staged very well.
Yeah. So for a young kid in Africa or anywhere in the world that is watching this and says, you know what, I don't think I want to play football, but I want to be a commentator. What are the steps that they need to take? What are the things they need to do to become a commentator? Do they have to talk in a certain kind of way? Do they have to have a certain kind of accent? Do they have to behave in a certain way? What are the steps to become the next Martin Tyler?
There aren't any steps. You have to love football. That's the most important thing. When you said doesn't want to play football, that may be because he's not very good at football. But I think you should have a go at playing. I do think that helps a little bit. Even at school, you know, you have to have the chance to play. I think it helps you understand the difficulties of the game, how good the players are. I mean, I'm quite soft on players, really, if they miss good chances in front of goal, because I was a striker and I've missed plenty in my semi-professional career. So I have a lot of sympathy for them. And sometimes the guy alongside me, whether it's Alan Smith or Gary Neville or Jamie Carragher, goes, "You're too soft. You know, he should have scored that." And I think the love of the football, the love of the game, is the crucial thing. For the rest, be yourself. Don't try and be somebody else. Don't try and copy you or me or Peter Drury or all the other names that you have at your fingertips. Just try and develop your own personality, because it's not an act. No actors do it. Some actors have come into it and then they've discovered they can't be an actor. They have to be themselves. So, and yeah, voice is important, I suppose, to some extent, but I wasn't trained at all. I had just a lucky break, really, and the desperation to find my way to the level of football that I was trying to set out on to reach as a player. And it gave me an opportunity to mix with my heroes, really. So there's a great incentive. It's a strange world in the sense, as we touched on earlier, you can't do it perfectly. So you come away from most games wishing you'd said something else.
Yeah, I feel that all the time.
Yeah, and you have to have a mechanism to deal with it, you know. I've been doing it 45 years and it's just the same. And when you've been doing it 45 years, you will still feel the same. There's no solution to this, because obviously there's so many possibilities of things you could say. I think getting the names of the players right is the most important thing, the identification. So you've got to have that kind of brain about it. One thing that's really surprised me is we have a lot of ex-players sitting alongside, but not in my country anyway has anybody from say a top division player, an international player, wanted to do what I do, which is what they call play-by-play in the USA, you know, to actually call the game and do the detail of the game. And then, of course, you've got your ex-player, manager, sitting alongside you who interprets the game. And so it's there. If you know, it's you've got to find your own pathway. But I do think I don't know about Nigeria, obviously, but there are many media courses in the UK now where you can really get trained. I was never trained. I just sort of stumbled
I wasn't
into it.
trained to. I came from football, and this happened.
No, but I should ask you. I should ask you the question. You tell your audience. You tell your audience what they need to become you.
Okay. The first thing is, I'm like you. I was playing for Elfsborg in Sweden. We just got promotion, and I think I was playing the last game of the season, and I got injured. So I spent 11 months in the hospital in Russia, in St. Petersburg, and the doctor said I can't play football anymore because there are 18 screws in my knee, and medical science was not as good as it is today, and so my career ended just like Malcolm Van Basten. So I went to Canada, I came back, I became a coach. I was coaching, but I wasn't enjoying it. Yes, I liked coaching, but it didn't feel like the excitement of playing, bringing it across and scoring a goal and celebrating with the lads. So I thought of something else to do. I went into management. I ran a club for 18 months. I was frustrated. So I was in Lagos, and I started hearing a radio called Sports Radio. And I said, that's what I want to do. Because at the time, I started feeling like, you know what? These guys just have opinions about football players. They don't even know what happened in the dressing room. This is just mere journalists. That was how I was feeling. And I felt like, I was acting like I was a crusader. I want to speak on behalf of the players. I want to speak for the players. And that's...
I feel a bit like that as well, because although you obviously played at a higher level than I did, but the truth is you need somebody to understand exactly what it's like to be on the field, not to be criticizing them as though they're robots. And so I think that sensitivity is really important, and you've obviously made it work for you.
So that's what got me in. And as soon as I got in, I started explaining to people, okay, he missed that chance. Let me give you a good example. In 2010, Yakubu Aiyegbeni were playing against South Korea, and Yakubu Aiyegbeni had a chance to score. I mean, anybody could have scored that goal, right? But he missed it. And the Nigerians have, it's 10 years now, Nigerians have still not forgiven him. I mean, there is still hatred. But I was the only guy on radio saying that, yes, the chance is easy. But you see, in football, the easiest ones are the ones that are easier to miss. And people didn't get what I was saying. I said, yes, because somehow you kind of like in that moment, close your eyes and say, it's done. Let me just put it in. And so I was reminding them of chances that have been missed, that are clear-cut, that I've seen in football, but nobody was going to listen. Like too much emotion is invested in your national team. It's the World Cup. I mean, this is not Brazil. This is Korea. You should beat Korea. But, I mean, that's the fans for you. So that's the kind of sense that I had, like I should explain the player's position to the listeners, even though sometimes they wouldn't accept it. And I think that's what got me going. And then I am very passionate. Like, I'm passionate. I love the game of football. Maybe that's what has kept me going to this very moment. So let's come back to you. It's not me now. It's not my story. Let's come back to you.
No, but our listeners today can identify more with you than they can with me, really. But in simple terms, and to go back to what you asked me, once I have three things. I call it the 3 eyes, which is like you need a third eye, if you see what I mean. But the I, the letter, rather than I, the organ on your face. One is identification. So you've got to be sharp on knowing what the players look like. It's a lot easier now because obviously you can watch on TV, see pretty much any team at any point in time, which is very helpful. When I started, that wasn't possible. Then you have to give some information. That's the second I for information. That's the facts and figures. But you have to try and apply it at the right time. Don't bore your listeners with fact after fact after fact. If somebody's scored a goal and it's their 30th goal of the season, you need to know that. So you need to prepare the facts. And the last I is interpretation, which is more with co-commentary. It's more. But you join in that because you understand the game, and if you talk to people, which is what I try to do, talk to the managers and the players, you get some indication of what they're trying to do. When it doesn't work, or when people are saying why are they doing that, you might be able to explain why they are doing it, because they've passed on the information to you. So I always say to managers, is there anything you'd like me to know? Therefore, that if they want to get a point across, I'm not going to just parrot it out. But if they're telling me we're playing like this because, and it's not working, and the co-commentator says, well, I don't know why they're playing like this, I can at least answer that question and say, well, they're trying to do this, and maybe now they'll change because it's not working, or the other way around, it is working, and well done to them for the working out a good way to win a match. So, but it's a package, really. It's not something that you set out to follow. It's that you can't go to a bookstore and buy a book, How to Become a Commentator, but you can follow your dream. And what I do say to young people is, if you really want to do it, you'll do it. But when I say really want to do it, it's not like 5 hours a day, 4 days a week. It's your whole life.
Yeah. Now, when you say your whole life, and that's what I tell a lot of people, there are two ways to do things. If you don't want to do something, you have 1,000,001 excuse, and they are genuine excuse not to do it. But if you want to do something, you're going to find all of the reason, the strength, the motivation, the purpose to do it. So let's move into the things that have come into the game. Let's take, for instance, in the 80s, in the 70s into the 80s and early 90s, the yellow card was different from what it is today. The number of matches people miss was different from what it is. And the back pass, the biggest change in the 90s was the back pass rule. Goalkeepers, they say the African goalkeepers were slipping on the ball. So they changed it, especially the Cameroonian goalkeeper. So they changed it. Goalkeepers can't handle the back pass anymore. But the biggest change that football has experienced is the video assistant referees. Now, every change that I've seen throughout the game, from a player's perspective, I cannot understand it. Goal line technology, the back pass rule, the offside rule, even though I still have issues with it. But the one that I don't understand is the video assistant referee. Now, this has so many reasons. Before now, referees have 18 rules that they follow, and one of the rules was unwritten, which is the 19th one, even though it's not written. It is called the referee's discretion. And then video assistant referee came in. Now, for me, my confusion is the fact that it's beginning to make referees not to be responsible. A game goes bad, and I've seen quite a lot in the last 2 seasons. A game goes bad, you can't blame the referee, and you're saying it's the video assistant referee. Shouldn't the referee be responsible for the game? And in a place where he is not sure, he consult the video assistant referee. Is that not what it should be? Or what is it to you? What's your understanding of video assistant referee?
Well, I think we're going to have some new interpretations coming in. In the Premier League, of course, they've gone against the protocol, it's called, the way it should be enforced. They've decided not to let the referee, or not encourage the referee to go and look at the monitor to get his final opinion. And we had a World Cup that worked okay in Russia with the referees doing that. And the final itself, you might disagree with the decision. I certainly did, but he went and made it himself.
Yeah.
And so that is, I think that's something that will change in the Premier League when we get going again. But I think it's something that the game has to try, you know. That's if you're 10 years old now, you're wondering why we're all complaining, because they're just looking at it and saying, well, that's what's happening. And things that changed when we were 10 years old. How old were you when the back pass rules changed? You weren't what were you, 15?
I wasn't comfortable with it. It was 1990. I was 13 years old.
1992, yes. Yeah, it was 92.
92, I was 5 years old. Yeah, I was 5 years old. 92.
Well, there you are then. You see, so but you're a thinking man, so you weren't comfortable with it. But the truth is, a lot of people just accepted it because that was what the football was when they joined it. When I joined it in the 1950s, if you like, as a kid watching the games, there were certain things that were different to what had happened for the people I was watching it with. They say they changed the offside law back in the 1920s, and we're not quite sure about this and that. So there's always been change in the game. Always been change in the game. I think the communication to the fans is not good enough yet, but they're still learning, the referees. Their job is to communicate with the players, and now they're being told they've got to communicate with everybody, and that's changed. If you think about politicians, they used to have to communicate with themselves in government. Now they're all movie stars because that's the way you have to be a politician. You have to be able to go on the screen and handle the questions, and the football managers have to go onto the screen and do the press conferences. They've all become movie stars when they weren't before, until all this marketing of the game happened. So it is a change. There is football there without VAR, so if you really hate it, you can go and watch that. Our lower leagues, our Championship and our Football League, the League One and League Two, they don't have VAR, and they're very good leagues to watch, so it's always available. But there were one or two games I've come away from and thought, well, thank goodness for VAR. Arsenal played at Manchester United quite early in the season, and Aubameyang had a goal disallowed for offside, and they reviewed it, and he was well onside, and the goal stood. And it would have been one of those games, you've all seen them, you all remember games where you go away thinking, oh, well, the home team won 1-0, but actually the away team had a perfectly good goal disallowed. But that's it, so you accept it. But it was disallowed, but it was reinstated, and it was a fair result in the game. So I think there are some good things that come out of it, but I think for the referees to think that they could learn it all in one season. I know they had trials before, but it's tough for them, and we can't manage without them. We've got to try and help them. And some of this, and you've been a professional player, some of the things that happen for referees are the fault of the players, because if you try to deceive the referee, sometimes you're going to be successful, then the referee gets the blame, when really the players should get the blame.
Yeah.
I think the players' behaviour now is much better. Much better.
I agree. Yes, absolutely, yeah. I agree. I mean, there were times where players would roll around the referees, and most times I didn't like it. Even when I was playing, I felt like you're putting this referee under too much pressure. Come on, let's get on with the game. I mean, we'll consider goal. Okay, let's get on with the game. If the referee standard is whistle, let's get on with the game.
I'm an assistant manager in the National League, which is the 5th division here.
Yeah.
And I get furious. We come in after a game and we've lost, and they go, the referee did this, the referee did that. And I go, we've had 95 minutes with added time to try and win this game, and you're blaming the referee, when what have we been doing when it wasn't a bad referee? We haven't been doing enough to win the game. So I do have a lot of sympathy with the referees. For one reason, we have the same job, really. I mean, we do have the replays now. Now they have the replays, but before we were the ones with the replays, so we could prove them wrong, and they had no chance to have a second go.
And it's a split-second decision. Okay,
so we've got to live. I think we've got to live with it and hope it improves.
Okay, so I'm going to take you away from football. What is Martin Tyler like outside football? I know that you are the assistant coach of Woking FC, right? Woking Football Club. Now, what's Martin Tyler outside, away from football? I mean, you've done this for 45 years, but outside running commentaries, organizing games, what's your life like?
There isn't much time for the rest. I've got 2 children I'm very proud of, 32 and 30. Adam's the older one. He's the boy. He's a film director. He's making good films, good works. He's got a very humanitarian heart, and he makes films for schools. I'm very proud of him. And my daughter, Jenny, she's 30, and she's an actor. And so I follow her work. Like a lot of actors, she's often out of work. But she's been very creative in this isolation period. She just made a music video herself on her phone. Wow. She's filmed it from all sorts of different angles, edited it, and made it into something that's very professional. So they're my rocks, really. I love them to bits, and family life is important to me. But it is football. They know that we won't have a conversation without football being in it at some point. They've grown up with football, so they sort of accept it, and they like it. Adam's very analytical about it. Jenny loves the theatre of it, the drama of it, because of her acting. So here in isolation, I've been working out. I've been doing my exercise bike every day. I'll be coming back fitter. I'm not sure the players will be. This old commentator will be. I've been running today. I try and still keep fit. I love you know, the action of football. And then there's not much time for anything else. I enjoy television's a medium that's been very good to me. I like stuff that's not too serious. I'm not very good with the movies with a message. I like a happy ending. So I'm a romantic, really, I suppose. But
that's so nice.
There's no mystery. Let me tell you, there is no mystery. You've heard me work for a portion of my life, but every time you hear me, it's a 90 minutes of both our lives. And that kind of person that comes across, I hope, is a happy, positive, but I maybe emphasize the positive, but I don't eliminate the negative. And I try to be fair, and I try to be impartial. That's the one thing that does upset me. I know on social media, everybody thinks I'm a this fan, I'm a that fan. The truth is, the only team I've ever supported is the team that I'm now the assistant manager of. And it's unbelievable because I went to the first game at 8, and at the age of 71, I joined as the assistant manager. I finally got on the team photo. And if you go onto the working website, this is true. You go onto the working website, you'll see the team photo. All the players are, and you know like this because you know what players are like. They're all po-faced. You don't smile on a team photo. You stand there and say, I've got the biggest smile because I can't believe I'm on a Woking team photo after all these years. Took me a long time to get there, so I'm going to smile and enjoy it, you know.
Yeah, it took you 61 years wait. Okay,
yeah.
so in this journey for the 5 years of being a commentator, living in football from the age of 8 or less than that, what are the highs and the lows?
I think winning and losing are highs and lows. You know, as a fan, if your team wins, it's a wonderful euphoria. If you're a player and you win, it's a fantastic feeling. As a coach, if you win, it's an amazing feeling. They're very hard to get wins in the higher levels you go. But as a commentator, it's seeing a beautiful game played by players with talent that you and I could only imagine, that, you know, the very top players. I always say, if you really want to know how good they are, try and get a seat right down at the bottom of the stadium where you're by the touchline. Yeah. And you see the speed, and you see it. It looks so easy when you're from the high camera. But the speed and the talent and the attitude, it is a beautiful game. And you know what? It's the world game, and that's what makes me so proud, because, you know, here we are talking from different continents and talking as friends, and I've made so many friends around the world through football and seen the good that football brings. Of course, it's a troubled world at times, but football brings, and there have been occasions where football matches have caused wars between countries, but not very often. More often, they're a joining, they're a
bond and unity more than war, actually. I mean, football is really united the world a lot more than it has brought war or crisis. And as we go, what's that one pattern shot you want to leave with people? What's that thing you want to leave out there and say, you know, do this or do this? Or, I mean, especially in this period where we are in isolation, we have to, I mean, this is the best way to communicate right now. You can't shake people. You know, growing up, they used to say united we stand, divided we fall. But somehow coronavirus came in and it seems like united we fall, divided we stand. So what's the thing?
Well, that's very well put. Can I borrow that from you?
Yes,
that's
you can. Yes, you can.
I think life is precious. I think we should never take it for granted. This has brought us all a reality check. I think we'll come out of it better people, because we've had to have time with reflection, a sense of perspective. But I know that I will, God willing, return to what I've been so lucky to do for so many years, knowing how grateful I am that if I've been kept safe, people have kept me safe. The health workers have been amazing in this country and all over the world. And it just reminds you again that you can't do it on your own. You have to be in a community. It's hard being isolated, and none of us are enjoying this. And I live on my own, so it is that kind of time. You have moments in the days when you really feel imprisoned, and then you realize that it's all for the greater good and your own good as well, which is very important. But when we're back together, just loving each other, understanding each other, respecting each other, and realizing that we can beat this, we will beat this, and we will go forward together. And our beloved football, I'm very aware of the bigger picture, and football has to wait its turn in this. But our beloved football will be back with us soon, and hopefully I won't be left as an old person in my house. I'll be allowed to go out and commentate again.
And mix up with Jamie Carragher, Gary Neville. A lot of people. Sorry, I'm bringing this up now. A lot of fans, I am not anyway, but a lot of fans are confused about the character of Gary Neville and the recent spat between Graham Souness and Paul Pogba made everybody talk about, oh, God, these old players are always hating on the new players. The new players are earning too much money, so the old players are not happy. Is this thing acting? Is it just something to do for the media? Is it a show, or this is really happening, like these guys are fighting each other?
You mean Gary and Jamie Carragher and Graham Souness and people like that?
Yes.
They are very responsible, serious-minded, but very good fun people who are aware of what they believe the game should be. And they've achieved a lot. All of them have achieved a huge amount in the game. Their opinions, therefore, I think are very valid. And they're not frightened of airing their views. It is obviously their choice to be part of the media, but they know that once they've accepted that is what they're going to do with their careers, that they have to deliver honest opinions. But it's honest. They're extraordinary people. I have to say, they energize me. I mean, Graham's not that much younger than me, but he's got terrific energy still. Gary and Jamie are real forces of nature. They are absolutely unstoppable when they're in their stride. And it's really a great privilege to be able to listen to them on the air and off the air as well, because they know a lot. They care. That's the thing that I want to stress. They all care. They all want to help the game be better. They've done it as players, and they've contributed hugely to what we've all been, you and I have now been talking about for a long time this evening. They've contributed to all that. And they want to make sure that if they can, that the right things are done. And I know Gary at the moment is helping a lot, advising some levels of football as to how to progress from this, because it is going to be a difficult time, but
really,
it can be solved. It will be solved, and there will be football long after I've gone and long after you've gone as well.
Absolutely.
There will be. It's there for generations and generations, and we're just touching it on our way through. It belongs to everybody.
Okay, so I'm finally going to put you on the spot. You're going to give me two teams. Your all-time greatest Premiership 11. Goalkeeper.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to do that because I'll miss somebody out. You should have given me some notice about that.
Oh,
but I would say that one thing I will say to you is I do think I'm full of admiration for Alan Shearer of 260 Premier League goals.
Wow.
And remember he started before the Premier League started, so he had some goals in the bank before then. The 260, and he swears it's 261 because there was an own goal in a game. I was at the game, and I would have given it to Alan, but these goal allocation panels now, and so he still wants that, even though he's long retired.
Yes.
But let's say officially 260. I think that's a fantastic feat. I think Arsenal going through the season unbeaten in 03-04 was amazing. We've had some really good teams come close, but they haven't managed it. Manchester City and Liverpool, obviously, in recent times. Chelsea lost one game in one of Mourinho's seasons, didn't they, I think? But they have it in the record books. And then Leicester City, the fairy tale, the Fox's fairy tale.
15-16.
extraordinary achievements. And just add to that the fact that I was lucky enough to be there when Aguero did what Aguero did. So if you'll forgive me for not naming an 11, I'll name you those things as things that I cherish from being a small part of as a broadcaster.
All right, thank you very much, Martin Tyler, for your time. And I can only ask and plead that this is not going to be the last. When the season resumes and we have football back again, I'm going to keep calling you for my show to give me your thoughts on some games, some weekend reviews, previews, as the case may be. Thank you so much. You've been a father, a grandfather to us, a legend, a hero, a mentor. I mean, you saw us in Brazil, two boys from Africa, and you spent over 2 hours with us, you know, giving us guides and telling us some stuff. And those stuff have helped us in how we shaped and improved our game and our work and our ethos and ethics in the business. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. We're brothers together in our broadcasting, and we're part of the great football family.
All right, thank you. This is where we end the chit chat with the legendary, the amazing, the ubiquitous Martin Tyler. It's still ELEGBETE TV. My name is Daffy Matthew Esiogene, and I've had the amazing Martin Tyler with me. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.